the phone. See me eye to eye. Stand up like a man.
Holding the Mountain Dew. That's a sponsor.
Hey everybody, welcome to another MoGraph podcast. I'm your host, Matt Milstead. Joining me this week is from Dropout TV, our good friend, Mr. TJ Gonzalez.
Hey man, how's it going?
It's good. I want to give a big shout out to our universal sponsor, Otoy. They're a universal sponsor. You know them, you love them. They're the makers of Octane Render and the Render Network. With Octane, you can create super photorealistic renders in a fraction of the time of other render engines. And for those those renders that need a little extra push of power, the Render Network has you covered. They can render your Octane, Blender, and Redshift frames in a fraction of the time and a fraction of the cost of other cloud rendering services. And I don't have the information, but Render Royale will be coming up, so make sure and stick around. I'll probably have it on next week's show announcing what the this month's thing is, but thanks to everyone who participated last week. Super excited to get started in this week or this month. So yeah, we're here to talk to TJ. We're gonna have a lot of fun today. You know what? This is gonna sound weird, but I dreamt about this podcast last night. I think it was because I was putting together all the email blasts and stuff like that. So you were last thing on my mind, but I was like,
the man of your dreams, baby.
You are. So yeah, super fun to talk to you about all things, Dropout TV and what you do there and all the other things and stuff, because every time you and I chat, it's like, I am so appreciative of the company that you work for,
I'll take it. I'm appreciative of Dropout too. I mean,
yeah,
we're a good little fam of good people.
Yeah,
and I see some names in the chat too. David Mellor and Blake Catherine on there. There's some of my most common freelancers too.
Yeah, I hit up Mello yesterday. I was like, dude, when are you gonna come on the show? He's like, oh, I need to sign up. So love you, David.
Yeah, get in there, David. David mentioned that to me earlier because he saw that I was being on here today.
Oh, that's funny. That's really funny.
Yeah, I was telling him, I was like, oh, I hadn't really prepped or anything like that. Now that it's getting close and I'm all hyped on caffeine, now I'm like.
That's the way I do it. I like to. I've said this before, but I really like to come completely unprepared for a podcast because it's so much more off the cuff, I've been doing, we're now at episode 456. If I can't talk to one of my friends for an hour, I'm in the wrong business. So
the scripted things and the statements about MoGraph that you've said.
Yeah. I know I've got it written down, and just for reference, if I need it, I'll probably hit it at the end. But yeah, I know it pretty well.
I love it.
So, TJ, let's talk about you because, like I said, you work at Dropout TV, but you also are you officially full time there, or are you still freelance? I know there's been this freelance and then full time, whatever, and with the whole College Humor into Dropout TV, yeah.
Right now I am. Not right now. I have been full-time, in-house with them now for about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was freelancing with them for 2 years before that. I had a short, hiatus where I was doing a lot of corporate animation, a lot of it with my partner, Blake Catherine. And then before that, I had 5 or 6 years full-time in-house when Dropout was just College Humor.
Yeah.
When I say just College Humor, I mean publicly facing their College Humor, and we were secretly making the first slate of all of the shows of Dropout. So we had
interesting.
We had to release the platform with a slate of finished shows. So
mm-hmm.
As the motion graphics artist for College Humor, my responsibility was to make 2 sketches a week, and then secretly all of the show troopers and a couple, and Dimension 20, you know, our first slate of all of our shows, I was collaborating with our designer. So at that, you know, was a lot of on the back burner, having to grow an immense amount because I was completely over my head on what we were doing, as was the whole company. And as we continue to be, that, you know, that's kind of the fun of the magic of Dropout, is we're, you know, really kind of punching above our weight class, and we're kind of small and nimble. And now that our production value has grown a lot, that's, you know, we're kind of finding that balance of like, what's actually responsible for like a streaming improv comedy company. Like, you know, we're not actually competing with Netflix. So at a time we have to kind of remind ourselves, like, you know, maybe we don't need to spend $20,000 on like a crazy gag. That's like a bunch of motion graphics and visual effects. And we add like, you know, we just gave ourselves 10 review rounds for one gag. Like, let's pull it back a little. None of this was planned or scheduled.
So, man, I will say, like, whoever does the marketing for Dropout TV, it like fantastic, because the reason I discovered Dropout TV, and I didn't even know, like, I followed College Humor since I was, you know, since the very beginning, with Jake and Amir. You know, love Jake and Amir. I met them in person one time in Nantucket, of all places. They had just gotten off the boat, and we're like, "Hey, Jake and Amir," you know, got a picture with it. It was weird. Anyway, but I don't even remember where I was going with this. But I followed College Humor. I didn't know Dropout was a part of it, and so like I'm on TikTok. You know, I'm a avid TikToker, and I kept on seeing, you know, Dropout TV stuff, and it was always some of the best skits, you know, and stuff like that. And it's like, all right, I got to check it out. And it is just, I absolutely love all the shows. The shows are fantastic.
Our social team and marketing team, it's kind of hard to see where one starts and the other ends, because we kind of have this amazing strategy where all of our shows have their own social channels, and some of those social channels are bigger than Dropout social channels.
That's so
like the Game Changer show has its own, you know, social channel where all of our clips end up, and then those go viral, and then that plays friendly with, you like that, now look at this, because a lot of our followers are in the same channels. You know, this is really awesome, you know, social experiment where our advertising is very low cost, because so much of it is dependent on like social virability. And then you end up seeing Sam Reich all over all of your channels, because he's the host of Game Changer and Make Some Noise, and those turn out to the best bits and clips, because there's lots of one-offs there where people get like, you know, that's where you can really have an amazing 1 minute of content there, as opposed to some of our long-form stuff in the tabletop side. You know, D20, you'll get those bits, but it's not the same thing where it's out of context, and that's really like emotional storytelling.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff with Sam is specifically built, almost specifically built to be a clip unto itself, where it's like, okay, here's the prompt, act it out, you know, and if it's crazy good or whatever, you know, that's
Totally. And the way that relates into a little MoGraph as well, it's funny because then like this year we're kind of trying to, you know, figure out how that can work for some of our other shows, where we're kind of building some, you know, like Mogurt, you know, like motion graphic templates for Premiere Pro. We're doing like some like Mogurt templates for our social team so that they can operate a little autonomously and have some motion graphics. So in the way that Make Some Noise has a prompt at the beginning, we can kind of, you know, set that precedent at the beginning of other clips and kind of, you know, structure some of our stuff that way for our other shows.
How big is the team at Dropout TV? Like
internal of like in-house, we're reasonably small. You know, I think we're probably somewhere around like 30 plus or minus 5. Maybe, so probably right there. We have an enormous, you know, freelance network though. You know, I have probably like 12 to 15 rotating freelancers on the MoGraph side. We have even more than that of editors. And then, you know, our main internal crew though is like the post management team, and myself. I'm part of that. So we have like the post management team's like 4 or 5 people, and then we have a little media management team as well that's internal. And then pretty much everyone else in our post department is all freelance, but some of them were with us back in College Humor days.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the, I think, I want to say one of our editors who edited like the first season of D20 is back with us doing some of our like Dropout specials. We're kind of growing into doing hour-long specials and some other types of content. So it's kind of this crazy balloon that, you offer profit share and your freelancers want to come back to you. So it's like,
that's something that amazed me about, because you don't hear that from like barely any company, out sort of even like a corporate structure like this or whatever, where it's profit sharing, and even for freelancers.
Totally. Anyone
that
who's
is
done
insane.
anything
Yeah.
at the end of the year, based off of the percentage that's being shared at that, no matter what you did in what department or anything, contractor or full time, there's like a percentage that gets calculated, and everyone will receive that off of any invoicing they had done. But that's a great way that we're trying to share our growth with the people who made us grow. I totally acknowledge that we are coming out of new media, digital media. We used to be a YouTube. Those rates are not matching that of some of these bigger tech overlords. I know Amazon and Netflix. I know a lot of their rates. I've worked for them as well.
Yeah.
But the smoother work process and the friendly faces, the laughing in our meetings, and then the profit share kind of, the healthier lifestyle kind of helps it a little bit. But we're trying to always grow our rates and take care of our people as we can afford it.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, we're trying to balance like what was a YouTube sketch to a little mini streamer show to now with a little bit more production value.
Yeah.
Where does that balance? Because, we're also trying to make sure we grow responsibly.
Yeah. 100%.
Dropout as College Humor, we were 100 people in inside the building of IAC. They were the ones who owned College Humor. They own a lot of companies. They own Vimeo as well, and that's kind of part of through their video and video production focuses was College Humor. I believe sorry if I get any of these wrong to any of these companies, but we were like part of Big Breakfast, part of Electus Digital. It was like, and then that was owned by IAC. So we had like 4 chains, 4 links down the chain.
Yeah.
We had 100 employees, and I want to say like we were probably paying just as much in parking as we were in rent. So we're trying to really grow responsibly. We're staying a little smaller. We're seeing, where we can find that cap. And
was College Humor based in New York, or was it in
Mm-hmm.
LA? And
Both.
But you're in LA now, right? Or were you?
College Humor was in New York, and then they made like a video television department. At a point, they had a show on MTV, I want to say. They had turned like the Jake and Amir and the Hardly Working is the greater universe of like them working in the office.
Yeah.
But, that's kind of where Jake and Amir sprouted out of that style of sketches. That kind of turned into like a TV show on Comedy Central. I'm sorry, on MTV. And then at that, there was a big focus on like television development and trying to pitch. So they had like a team. And I want to say that Sam Reich was the like head of television development at that time back then.
Interesting. So how did College Humor eventually merge into Dropout? You said you were doing work as College Humor.
We had like, I started at College Humor, well into College Humor being a brand and being established. So that was me filling in for a previous, motion graphics / visual effects artist. It's this jack of all trades, master of none mentality where we're making sketches. It doesn't really matter. And then, so I was with them for about 6 years, in-house, or 5 years. And at that point, probably around like 2017, 18, we started internally developing the concept of Dropout. And then that was funded by our tech conglomerate owner. And then, we had like a certain period in which that we like showed growth to profitability. And then, they didn't want to wait in the end. So then at that, College Humor, then, I'm not sure this very specific, the nuanced specifics of the stuff, and that's not really important. But, in long story short, in that Sam Rice ended up leveraging and purchasing the company and turning it into just Dropout a couple years later.
Yeah.
The pandemic happened like months after it.
Yeah.
But a testament to the experience of it. They put all of us into a giant, beautiful conference room,
Mm-hmm.
and then we all lined up on the table. Then they had a free, like an outside source come and serve us all our firing paperwork because,
man.
at that, College Humor went from 100 employees to like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Like the main stakeholders of the company, the main departments. It was like the head of marketing, Sam, Brennan, because D20 was so big, and a couple other people. But they had us all line up. They fired us all. We went down the whole line, high-fived everybody, did a victory lap around the conference table, and everyone like cheered and clapped like it was graduation.
That's funny.
Every time we had any meeting, or you got that many College Humor people in the room, there was we were going to make a joke of it and laugh laugh at whatever context it was.
Yeah.
And then so that turned into everyone getting fired. We all went next door, drank our sorrows away. But they took care of us in some capacity. We all got some severance, and and then one of our internal employees actually created a website called Hire a College Humorer. So then they built a whole thing that was, these 100 people are the most talented people in internet culture and internet media, hire them, kind of thing. And so it was like a portal for companies and friends of the company to come and kind of scoop us up. So that the name College Humor got me in at like 3 or 4 different studios around town that I'm really grateful for. Although it didn't work out in a meaningful way, the pandemic shut everything down, and I was working from home, and the post production became the most important business in the world within marketing. So I feel really bad that so many people got fired and how all that went down, but it's the best thing that ever happened to me. In that 1 year, I over doubled my salary, and then pivoted into doing like marketing animations and corporate stuff. And I was on retainer at an agency to do endless budget amount of work to make sure that they could secure like Snapchat's exclusive video marketing. So it was like, cool, you need to work weekend, you need to work at night, bill us time and a half, it doesn't matter, it's all drops in a bucket. So I was doing that at the same time as doing some motion graphics work with Blake, and again, everything had to be post-production. So we were getting to do work. We ended up working with like Smirnoff and Genesis.
I saw some of the Smirnoff ones that you had done. They look great.
That's probably the latest part of what my reel is.
Yeah.
Just because I stopped updating it because I've been working back with Dropout so long. So you see the picture of my website. I'm 24.
I know. I was saying you didn't have the long hair then. You're very handsome, little baby face.
Yeah, I drew an afro on there at that point. Now my hair, it goes down to here now.
Yeah. That's funny. So you were you going over to Dropout? Were you just freelance initially when they brought you in after all the pandemic stuff and everything?
Yeah, so after the pandemic stuff, we had a show called Breaking News. It's a green screen show. It has a lot of motion graphics in it. It went like 9 seasons or so. It's not gone forever, but it's currently not in production. But that was a show I oversaw in a big, meaningful way. So then coming back to it, I was kind of fishing a little bit for some more consistent work. Because then at that, Blake and I we moved into a house, and covering the mortgage, we needed, it was good for one of us just to have consistent work. Yeah. Because the freelance game is a little bit, when it rains, it pours, but sometimes you just have dry spells. Yeah. And my safety net wasn't that huge. So I was like, I'm going back in house. And then, so I started doing Breaking News, and, in my absence, our lead designer, Paula Searing, now she's our creative director. She was filling in a lot, and we just didn't have much motion while I was gone. So it kind of worked out that, the company had to grow to where it is now. During the pandemic, they were doing Dimension 20 over Zoom. So it was, real lo-fi. They had mortises and, similar to what we have here in our border frames. Yeah. They had border frames and like character sheets that were non-animated. They would just cut to. Pretty similar to what Critical Role is. That show is a little more like live broadcast of something real, where Dimension 20 is a little bit more produced and we have, more animated elements and it's a little bit more post-focused. But, we kind of grew back into that post-focus. So, post-pandemic, me coming back in, and then at that, it was like, oh, it's kind of good that I'm overseeing this stuff. And then I'm doing an intro for D20. And then I was overseeing the templates. And then it was just growing to a point where they were hiring me to then oversee some stuff as a freelancer.
That's nice.
But then, you're the kind of the growing pains of needing, like, I need internal support so that I can make decisions and steer us internally. And it's not really feasible to be a outside source that is telling you what you need for your graphics and post department. I need to be able to establish that stuff before we shoot and when budgets are made, and not somebody else anticipating what we need. And then it comes to me and it was like, oh, well, that would be possible if there were 0 review rounds. And I don't have that much creative feedback to go off of, or that much direction. It really turned into growing the company into knowing, oh, we need these resources. This needs the structure of pre-planning. We need the producers to think about this and the directors to think about this. It needs to be shot specifically. We need someone to go on set sometimes. It really was restructuring what we had back at College Humor. But now as Dropout, as everyone works remotely, I'm working from home. I'm going to go on set tomorrow. It needs a lot more planning, a lot more structure, and a little, looking from a higher vantage point than actually making anything. What I make the most is credits.
Oh, really?
At this point, I make a lot of credits.
That's funny.
Not that I'm bellyaching on that. It's just, I am overseeing so many shows at once that, I'm hiring Blake to do designs, so then I can take those designs and throw them over to an animator, or I'm hiring David. He's a really good one-stop shop, because if something's 3D, I need my 3D artists to do their own designs. I can't hire a designer to mock something up and then go to 3D and then start over. I'm really try to make everything as responsible as possible. I really try to keep it streamlined and make sure that, like, we as a team are providing as much direction and development up top, or we're having to like build in that structure so that we have, somebody doing design rounds first. But again, it's real tough because we're trying to find that balance of, we're making ha-has on the internet. It's a cheap streaming service. So, I don't get the budgets that, Fox gets or Netflix gets.
Yeah. But what's interesting is, I feel like the amount of talk and the amount of notoriety that Dropout TV has is just as much as some of these other streaming giants and stuff like that, In
the certain circles, in the certain context, for sure. In the nerd sphere and something related to...
That's probably why I know it.
Totally. If Netflix were to make a D&D show, or maybe they have, I'm not sure. I'm sure they would blow us out of the water with the production value on their intros and stuff. But once you get to that 90-95% level and people are happy and it looks nice, no one's there for how good the intro is after you've seen it once or twice. And that's where it works really well, where I can work with really talented individual artists, and they're filling in that gap, and they're really like bringing production value and really like talent to our shows. Dropout is nothing without the people who make it great. We're the same team of 10 to 20 people internally who work on almost every show. It's some mix of all of us. We don't have that much creative juice, so like, we have to really rely on a lot of our outside talent where we're conveying a message or a theme, and really, really kind of, working with people to make sure that they feel empowered to do good work. And
how different is the workflows and the general, workloads and stuff over at Dropout versus, say, College Humor? Where it was a bigger staff, and I'm assuming now at Dropout, you're doing more of these longer form shows, versus College Humor. College Humor was all about like these, 5 to 7 minute skits and stuff like that. And which, you know, I will say the production value on a lot of those were fantastic. Like the Stormtrooper spoof ones, you know, I loved those. Those were great,
Totally.
you know?
Troopers was a little bit higher budget because that we went on location and we had some visual effects, and there was a third-party company made Troopers.
Oh,
When we
interesting.
made Troopers, the show, Troopers Rise of the Budget, I oversaw that one, and it was like, you know, we stretched that money as far as we could.
Yeah.
And, you know, but the difference at the sketches was we didn't have the internal infrastructure for a lot of that stuff in the same way that we do now, just because a lot of our talent internally is the same people, and we have 10 years of working experience more. So, you know, back when I started Troopers, that was my first, like, throw me into the fire and see if I can survive.
Yeah.
It was read every script, identify, and make a budget for all of the graphics for the entire season. So it was like, I'm going through and I'm saying, well, this is how I would make it. This is how expensive it would be if I made everything. Then I'm, you know, hiring a freelancer to then I would make about 20 to 30% of it. And then they would make like 70 to 80% of it, so that I could still oversee it, provide feedback, provide notes, and then also be overseeing the sketches plus the other 4 shows we were making at the time. But that worked really well in that context, though, because back then we were doing, you know, that's all scripted content. We were doing script reads with all of the departments. We identify, you know, where is makeup doing this versus where is visual effects doing this? Where does a prop master need to provide something? Where does, like, you know, we have the grips and the DP identifying, like, oh, we're doing lighting gags for when we do muzzle flashes for the guns, you know, so we get the lighting to flash onto people. All this to say, we were really pouring our heart and souls into making things at the highest production value possible.
Yeah.
For an audience that doesn't give a fucking shit about production value. Maybe in Troopers a little bit because we're spoofing Star Wars, so it has to look good to a certain degree. But, you know, we went through so many hoops and worked with really talented DPs and directors. I really commend them on their production value. But it's so funny because we were all, you know, we're all young and out of school and really wanting to shine and make TV. So we're like, you know, we don't have much money, but we're going to kill ourselves every single day so that we can make it as good as possible.
Yeah. You bring up an interesting point where with a lot of the stuff that y'all were doing at College Humor, it was all scripted versus almost everything on Dropout is unscripted, you know, ad-libbed and like performative comedy, you know. How different is it working in that sort of like a pipeline versus one that is quite a bit more structured? I
love the improv side so much more. It really allows me to shine in a way that, like, I can instill workflow processes. We're making a certain graphics pack that fits a whole season. You know, I'm very math brain. Not that to say I'm not creative, but, you know, being able to structure and build that out is very exciting for me. But then on top of that, it's much cheaper. And then my artists get to shine because there's not a writer, a director, and I'm not collaborating with 4 different departments between makeup, wardrobe, and lighting. You know, my artists get to input a lot of creativity. I mean, when I do a Dimension 20 intro, you know, we're getting themes out of the director and the show producers, but then we're kind of identifying, oh, like, is this a 2D animated thing? Is this a 3D thing? Is this a sequence that's built out of illustrations? You know, then we can identify the mediums that we want to work in. And then I just get to work with, you know, talented people in those realms. That working in scripted, you know, maybe we would make a show intro, but outside of that, then it's visual effects based. You know, maybe there's some news graphics, but, you know, I like MoGraph. You know, not to say I don't like visual effects, but visual effects is really, really challenging, and visual effects artists are brilliant. But that is so much time, so much effort. You know, I feel sorry that visual effects is like consistently shat on in Hollywood, where
Yeah.
like every movie is lying and saying they don't use visual effects, and it's like,
Yeah.
dude, you guys are just stomping on the 1,000 people in your credits. Like, you don't recognize that your movie's credits are 15 minutes long because of all the visual effects.
Yeah.
Then Tom Cruise goes on screen and lies and says it's all practical.
Yeah.
You know, visual effects is invisible, and you're trying to convey what somebody else is dictating. So I like the improv side. It really lets the graphics play friendly, and we get to do silly intros,
Yeah.
and we get to do silly transitions, and we really get to instill a lot more comedy in there because comedy is the focus.
Yeah.
But you look at a show that is overtly comedic, like Seth Rogen's show The Studio is a brilliant show, and it's written well and it's acted and it's really funny, but you don't know that there's millions of dollars of visual effects in that. They have scenes in that show where they're fully replacing backgrounds. They're filming people at a conference table, and the entire conference table is CGI. They're mapping back in reflections. They're having people come on set with little balls and getting the reflections, and visual effects is a big complicated process, and we're making silly ha-has on the internet.
Yeah.
Like, we don't got time, we don't got money for
Yeah.
that. Like, our visual effects is we're doing cleanup or screen replacements, things like that, tracking screen replacements. It's it's kid stuff that you can get away with learning tutorials on the internet.
Sure. So how much of the work that you're doing, because it's improv and stuff, like for shows where they'll show graphics, like Sam will say, give me an impression of this or something. You see a graphic on screen. Is that graphic made ahead of time? Do you guys get the prompts ahead of time? And so, or is a lot of the work that you're doing, it's like, okay, we are going to shoot this show, and then we're going to figure out what graphics we need to implement after the fact.
It is the biggest push and pull ever. We have certain shows where it's like, these shows are not budgeted for post graphic gags. Apologies to our cast that don't know that, and they love to be like, oh yeah, make a little cut to me in this way, and then it's like doing a fun graphic. We'll end up doing some of those because they end up being worth it. But a lot of those aren't really intended. If the improvisers make it up on the spot, obviously we haven't planned that.
Yeah.
Segments on Make Some Noise or Game Changer, that kind of stuff has some forethought. We're kind of intending that or making those type of assets in advance.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is we're going to say, we're going to allocate a certain chunk of money to this. And then we will work with our artists and be like, this is the amount of money we have to achieve this. After we've done 10 to 20%, please vocalize, like, do we need to scale back? We are working with a cartoonist. We have a certain amount of money. We need to achieve this. Please do PowerPoint style. Don't do rigging. Do it how you need to do to make it work within these parameters.
Yeah.
Because, again, it's a fun gag. Like, our most famous gag in this capacity is like, we do a segment on Game Changer called Propose a Visual Effect.
Yes. Yeah. I was gonna mention that one. Go ahead.
I made the first time we did that. Brennan Lee Mulligan's wife, Izzy Rowland, she's a very funny comedian. She proposed, I want buttholes, Sam. And then when they got to compound it, they says, I want more buttholes. Buttholes all over the universe. So then, I'm going in and like, how do you make buttholes entertaining? Outside of talking about it, it's very funny, but then you have to show buttholes on screen.
Right.
So, so I made these cartoony ones that are very silly. But then when they come back to her and she says, more buttholes, but different buttholes. So then I'm like, then I modeled them out of 3D. And then, I'm doing some deformers and making it look nasty. And then I'm colorizing it. And then after I render them, then I'm going in and I'm drawing in to make them smudgy and dirty looking. And then when it was all said and done, it was like, I could have just taken a picture of my hole and no one would have been the wiser. And I could have saved days of work. But it's that I don't even know where I started with this. I'm just like, but none of that's,
none of that's
planned.
scripted. Yeah.
None of it's scripted. I mean, it's, hey, we're doing propose a visual effect. We're going to say we have, $3,000 per contestant's, recommendation. Okay. And then we get there and then, then we talk about it in post and we identify what we really want. And, we did an episode last season where that came back. Izzy got to propose a social video, and that had a lot of buttholes in it. So like it was like a callback to the previous one, but now this time we did it with cartoon. We worked with cartoonists, and and the episode was framed to be like Shark Tank. So the contestants on the show had to bid a certain amount of budget they would spend to make this social media video. And they were all competing to see who would get the most views.
Yeah.
So these contestants went in and they say, we're going to spend $4,000 on that. And then we go into post and we're like, oh, well, actually, we want to make the video the best we can. And it doesn't matter what we spend. And, we're going to shift the budget around and however it's needed. And then it's like a 4X multiplier or something like that. It's,
that's
so,
funny.
All that to say, some of it's planned.
Yeah.
But, we have whenever I go through, I just budget. I'm like, here's the intro budget. Here's the lower thirds. Here's the transition. Here's the that. I have our general budget, our general show structure. And then I have an oh shit budget. And then if it's a show that is specifically improv based, then that oh shit budget is usually a lot larger. Because the oh shit budget is, wardrobe malfunction, censoring, screen replacements, any sort of cleanup. There's sometimes, we that's where the visual effects is invisible, and that, it's something that we have to pay for that. That's not something we try to skimp on.
Sure.
We have a vendor that we work with that's really alleviated us, because the cleanup work, that stuff does pay well or can pay well, but that's not stuff that my artists and my roster I'm really trying to throw to them.
Yeah.
Because some of them are moonlighters even, and really there because they provide a lot of creative juice and they're good to work with.
Yeah.
The cleanup stuff, I'm like, put a little ribbon on it and we send it off. We have an awesome vendor. Shout out to Spitshine VFX. They do as well.
That's cool. Yeah.
And sorry, every question you ask, I just go on a tangent.
No, it's great. Like, okay, so you're handling a lot of these budgets and stuff like that, and you're also hiring freelancers and things like that. When you're hiring out freelancers, are you like you've got a specific budget for this shot? Are you like, okay, lay it on the line. Here's what I've got for this shot. Do it within this. This is what we're thinking, Or is it
totally.
Like, hey, here's what we need done,
I have certain relationships with certain freelancers where, I'll name a couple names. I see in here that Mograph's, that Mello's in here a lot in the chat. When I'm working with Mello, I'm upfront and I'm like, we're working at, this is the budget. Like, don't bite off too much. Like, I know you're capable of so much, we're trying to spend it this amount, like, please work within this. At the end, you might have a stupid little note and we're going to have to do renders. Like, I don't want to put you in a position where, like, we're buds outside of work and I want to make sure that, like, we're treating you right. I have other freelancers that I'm not as friendly with outside of work. Obviously, I'm still trying to take care of them. But in that, I'm honest about our budgets as well. But some of them budget, hourly, and I'm just kind of having to keep that line of communication open throughout the process, where I'm like kind of checking in more of like, hey, how are we doing? Does this still seem achievable with like our initial pitch or like our initial budget? And usually it's like we'll have start paperwork based off of a set approved amount of time, and I've already pre-scheduled like projects. I have it already built out. We have 3 review rounds of 24-hour review rounds with our internal staff, so that chasing feedback internally isn't slowing down. And I really grinds my gears to like be chasing someone internally while I have like a freelancer who's like waiting to get going. And like, I already, not that I pre-committed that like you have to work, 10 to 6 this day. A lot of our schedule's a little bit more lax, where it's like, our fee, I'll usually have it so that the amount that I'm paying is less than the amount of time that is available for the work to get done before the review,
Uh-huh.
so that I ideally am able to send things out on review right on the morning, and there's not like lapse in time and communication, so that I'm not like fucking somebody over.
Yeah.
I'm sure Blake is rolling her eyes across the room hearing this, because Blake is my secret employee who works in the same room as me.
Right.
And it's like, I get 2 computers and I get to work with someone and collaborate in that way, to
Yeah.
where it's like way less structured in that same capacity.
Yeah.
Because then I just say the things as they're going, and maybe that's a little less healthy, but we've been working together and,
Yeah.
you know, under her name, under her brand for so long that we have a lot of shorthand and a lot of, we can step on each other's toes a little bit,
Yeah.
and be able to get through that. But, also she's a freelancer working for a company that I am an internal employee, and I'm obviously not trying to take advantage of her time, but
Yeah.
everything's different too.
Yeah.
I'm hiring some people to do designs that then go to animation, and then those project files will sometimes then go to someone else to make templates.
Yeah.
So sometimes project files will go between 2 or 3 people. But again, I really try to work with, like, you're the artist on this show, you can accomplish what I'm looking for. And if not, then it'll come back to me and I'll make the template files. Cause
Yeah.
I like my lower thirds to then be a Mogurt file, so the editors can use them. That's
Yeah.
good for next season. That
Yeah.
means next season, my budget's just episodic graphics, and my oh shit budgets is bigger.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to get now where I can up my rates a little bit. So, I'm in a midway point right now where, like, some shows, as they're going to the next season, we're starting to kind of up those rates a little bit.
Yeah, that's cool. How much say do you have, or do any of your VFX people, in like some of the visual gags, or is it
A lot?
Yeah.
So much, too much. That's part of, like, my job description when getting hired had to be like, you are also capable to create the stuff, and you are also not only guiding the process but also contributing creatively. It's a push and pull on certain things. Propose a visual effect is very visual effect talent heavy.
Sure.
Show intros is also very, it's creatively open a lot of the time. Ideally, I'm getting to provide a timed reference to match with some pre-designed assets in some capacity that someone can take over and then add extra to.
Mm-hmm.
But, to be honest, right now I'm overseeing the show Very Important People, that has every single episode has a lot of, motion graphics and visual effects. And Game Change is about to kick back up, and we're about to kick off our 2nd season of Parlor Room, which is a board game show. Every episode is a different board game. Every episode has different graphics.
Yeah.
It's a lot of meetings. It's a lot of communication. So, it's like, okay, let's convey what we need to these artists. Let's let them present forward what works best. And a lot of the time it is kind of leaning on our, collaborative talent to really work with us.
Yeah. Do you ever have freelancers that you reach out to, and the visual gags, the way they pull it off is so funny that you just want to get them back to do more of these?
Yeah, I gotta sing praises.
Or even vice versa, where it's like, oh no, that's not funny at all.
Well, it's usually funny, and when it's not, we kind of are able to, like, hey, like, this is what the joke is. This is like kind of how it has to play out. Like, it's frustrating when the gag is, oh, the joke is that it's really good production value, because that's like, well, guys, that's just expensive. Like, that's, the joke is we have to spend a lot of money. So, like, that's usually where, and those people are really talented, so I'd love to work with them again. But, like, what we've been doing more cartoon animation lately, and, like, when we work with our talent, it's like, oh my God, I didn't know that you could make it that way.
Yeah.
Like, that's so funny and so cute. So, like, big praise to some of our collaborators, Melina and Bex, they're the artists who did the buttholes that I was talking about earlier. We have to make buttholes funny and entertaining for 2 minutes, and they have them in overalls, and they're dancing and juggling and shooting rainbows out their butt. And, like, and then, like, at a point, one of the people gets transported into the world of Avatar, and then we're pulling in one of our illustrators who normally does character design for, I believe that one was Kate May, that does illustrations for D20, which is normally, like, detailed fantasy work.
Yeah.
Then we're like having like a really cool detailed fantasy illustration as the background for this monster that's all buttholes, and then we theme the whole Navi planet as buttholes, and so in that capacity, it's like we go back to a lot of the same artists because we get some of these people who are really talented, and I was watching this bit or this interview segment today that actually I think it was Chris Gethard called Dropout out, and he was saying like the working class artist is dying, and there's not opportunity for there's less opportunity for a working class artist. He's talking about it through the lens of comedy, but there's not opportunities for day players to really come on and do gig work in comedy or in arts is really tricky. So in that, I love bringing people back as much as I can. And, I went to Camp MoGraph this year in search of some artists, and I'm starting to kind of get a little bit of that going. But it's, I got to line up with the right project and the capacity, the skill set, because I have, 10 to 12 people that are, I love providing work for them. I mean, that it's hard out there. And if you're doing little silly comedy gags, that might not be the best glossy work that's getting you in an agency. So I know that I'm competing with some people who are really, agency worthy, and I know some of their rates, and I know they're working, they're taking a little bit of a little bit of pay cut to be working with us. So, I'm really trying to honor them. And
it's got to be one of the most fulfilling jobs in the world to be able to just make funny stuff. One of my favorite projects I worked on this year was with Game Day Creative, and they're a sports team. You probably know Eric Say. He's been at camp quite a few times. But we were working on, it was like these cartoony things and stuff, and it's like we had complete freedom to have fun with it and do cartoony things or whatever. So at one point we came up with this gag where it was we had to show off the sponsor, which was like Esso Gas or something like that. So we had the hockey team's mascot, and he has this big tongue, that was hanging out. And so we had this gag where he was riding in a van, and then you cut out further, and the van had a big tongue that was like waggling in the and it's like, okay, that's fun. And then he's out of gas, so he goes to the gas, and he did this gag where it's like, okay, he's taking out the gas pump and he starts pouring, but then it's the thing. The tongue of it. Yeah, the tongue is lapping up gas out of this giant dog bowl.
That's adorable.
Like it was so much fun to do that, even though we did get an email back from their lawyer that said, at no point should we say or imply that it is okay for humans or animals to drink gasoline. But it's like, we still had fun with that. And it's like, the one thing that I like about comedy, being able to do comedy animation, is that it's like you get out of this corporate world, out of this VFX world, out of the MoGraph world, and you get to be you get to have fun being funny.
Totally. And that's where I really love the improv element, and that's why I love, it allows me to play. But a lot of that play ends up more in the MoGraph realm than the VFX, just because the VFX is always predetermined, unless it's a marketing campaign like you're describing. I fucking love it. I'm blessed to be working where I'm working and to get to collaborate with the people I get to collaborate with. I would say it's the best job in the world if I could take out like the metadata and the spreadsheets and the technical feedback emails.
Yeah.
But it's so awesome to I'm playing with such talented people, and if you're talking the idea of cartoon, doing comedy animation, I see Matt Siegel here in the chat a lot down here. No one does it better.
Yeah. Yeah. How much say do some of the writers and like the comedians who are improvising everything, do they get a say in what some of the graphics are? More so than just propose a VFX, shot or something like that?
it doesn't take Sam to tell them to propose it for them to propose it.
Yeah.
If it's a funny gag, they'll end up with it. Or, we have a show called Dirty Laundry that is, it's, kind of like a people are guessing secrets about each other, but it's really a good hang show. We cast it so it's people who usually have chemistry together or prior history. We'll bring like 4 people in from like Smosh or like G4 or something that is a nerd culture where we can get 4 people out. And in that, they'll do like, this last season they're like proposing like make a scale of how theater kid something is. So then we're like doing animations on like the shit they're saying about being a theater kid. The cast loves to propose that. On our show, Very Important People, the host Vic Michaelis loves to say censor my feet. And for some reason, somehow their shoes will get taken off. And then now it's a gag that every time their shoes are off, we have to censor their feet. So now, when we made this next season, it's like, cool, there just is a little bit of budget for foot censoring. And I'd go back to our vendor and I'm like, I'd literally send an email today saying, hey, we've got some more foot censoring, same mosaic blur as last time. Here's the footage. What's it going to cost?
That's so funny. And I'm assuming there's probably recurring gags and stuff like that, just like that, right?
Totally. And a lot of this, that's the really like, the part of the magic. I'm talking a lot of collaborating with artists, but the crew is the same way and the cast is the same way. We have a lot of rollover talent. We have the same DP shoots like every season of Game Changer and now helps out with D20 as well. A lot of our producers roll over from certain shows so that they're also kind of keeping a reasonable permalance, a job position with us. And they're all doing the same, and same with the cast. The cast has amazing chemistry. I mean, a lot of them choose to perform with each other at the Elysian Theater through UCB. A lot of it really, they're all homies. So that's what makes them so funny together.
Yeah, for sure. How many shows are you juggling at one time? Like, how many let me say this. How many shows are you juggling and how many episodes of each show are you juggling at once?
Game Changer will usually be in like 3 or 4 episodes probably 3 episodes at once that I'll be directly related in, from taking meetings with our creative team, working with our freelancers, and receiving files for delivery. Those are kind of like the 3 stages of our process that I'm working in. Usually I'm in every stage on every show. And that, because we kind of have a release schedule where a lot of the times one show will share the Monday slot with another show and they kind of just swap every 6 months. We do bi-weekly releases. So we'll have like 2 shows that pair on Monday and they'll alternate. And then those will both go out of production. And then another 2 shows will take their place on Monday. At that, we have like a 6-month rollover. So I'm usually on 6 to 10. Wow. And then we also have something called Dropout Presents, which is our 1-hour specials. It's sometimes just a traditional stand-up comedy, but a lot of the times we're pretty meta because we're a media company. So a lot of the times we're reinterpreting a talented comedian from like Fringe Fest. They'll be doing like their first time of reinterpreting it in video medium. So then we'll be doing like a meta thing where it's then motion graphics or some visual effects related to that.
It's a lot to juggle.
It is a lot.
And also, I forget, even though, I didn't think about the fact that, it's online, whatever. You kind of think, oh, we'll just release it whenever. But no, this is, y'all are serious about this,
it's scheduled.
And you got to hit those deadlines and stuff like that. So not only are you juggling that many shows, but also hitting those deadlines as well for a Monday release and stuff like that. That's a lot of pressure, bro.
It is. It's stressful. We have our growing pains internally where we all kind of commiserate on the difficulty, but a lot of that really just comes from our growth and our ambition. All of us really are, we want to put, not that we want to put extra man hours in, and like, I don't want to work on the weekends. I really try not to. Yeah. That's the nature of us growing as fast and as big as possible. but we're trying to do it responsibly, and that's why we're not like, cool, just hire another TJ. Although, I'm sure that will come. We're having some, internal talks about, how we can alleviate me and how to make it more, a better work-life balance.
Yeah.
But it's really difficult because I was the guy who did the sketches and the guy who, made the templates and dictated the workflow for a lot of our shows. And I'm overseeing all of them. And, part of it is, there's a big landing way to get somebody in-house, learn our workflow, learn our process over,
especially someone who has as much history with like the brands as you do,
Totally.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to identify where I can offload certain shows, and I'm gonna find a protege to kind of build up and offload some of these shows.
Yeah.
I mean, actually is an awesome show we do. It's like Nerd Jeopardy.
Yeah.
But we're in season 11. This is a pipeline. This is a machine. That's something that I could see in a way that I can, find some outside help to really alleviate me. And, there's a world where someone's taking a couple of meetings, making a couple of trackers, and they can oversee like 3 of the easy shows. And then that would make it so I can really focus my time on some of the big stuff. Like,
how do you fight burnout? Like
that's, I get a little burnout every 3 months or so, but the really
your quarterly
cool thing
burnout.
Well, we do on thirds, we have the whole company set on hiatuses. So instead of taking traditional vacation days, the whole company goes black for 2 weeks every 3 months.
Wow.
So we just have 6 weeks of vacation time built in, so we can go through these sprints of working our asses off. And then, Blake and I went to Greece with her family last hiatus ago. And so it's like a good refresh and a reset where it's like the expectation is nobody fucking does anything over hiatus. Like, from the C-suite level, they're saying like, turn your reminders on that you're not available, and then, so the week before the hiatus is everyone getting everything prepped so that we can, really ignore it.
Amazing. So not only one, okay. So 2 weeks off every 3 months, also profit sharing. And then this is one thing that I want to bring up because like, I think this is incredible as a production company. And you have mentioned this several times about the whole, AI issue,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I'm happy to say, fuck AI, man.
Yeah.
We have AI policies internally. We send them when we hire contractors. There is no AI is allowed to be in any finished products of anything we create. On my end, that means no design work, no animation, no anything, no Gen AI. We have had internal. Oh, I'm sorry. Every 4 months. I said 3 months. I'm sorry. I get 3 hiatuses.
Yeah.
I said it's 6. I said 6 weeks, but we hire artists and we send AI policies. We send reminders in the emails when we hire people. We don't want any of that shit. We are a company focused on authenticity and we are capturing live comedy.
Yeah.
We are honoring what is happening. We've had some internal talks of like where that line is and what we can do with it. And the answer is very little. Even upscaling makes us squirm.
Really?
I mean, at certain companies they start as up-res. I have experience using Topaz in the past to up-res stuff just out of a technical necessity, but now they do a lot of Gen AI stuff, and I don't want I have to fight internally a little bit at the start of these conversations to, me and the marketing person and the tech and the head of technology was like, we don't want our stuff in these data sets. I didn't make the set. We have a talented designer who made that. I don't want their work to be in the data set. It's not respectful to our, it's not respectful for our talent. We cannot put our content in a data set. I don't want our talent's face in the data set. I don't want them to be on an ad for a beer in Malaysia. Because some slop company made some AI crap for whatever purpose at a low rate somewhere else.
That's pretty cool. Are you worried about competing or anything, or is it just like, because it's like, for example, Like, I was talking to Barton at ABC today about this, you know, and there's like, when it comes to AI, you know, in particular, there are companies that I think who solely say they focus on AI, you know, and they can do it in a good way where it's like, you know, this is specifically AI, you know,
Totally.
like there's a production company in London or something that I think produces some of the best stuff, you know, but they're incorporating not only live action as well as AI, and they don't try and hide that, you know. Versus like another company who is like saying, "Oh yeah, I did all this work," and it's like, "No, I just pulled a button or something like that." You know, it's more disingenuous. But I don't know where I was going with this. You know,
I think I do. You first started asking about competition. It's not just competition. It's not
Yeah.
just that I don't want our content to be ripped off. You know, that is not really my worry. The main worry is, well, it's not really a worry. It's more of a mission statement. You know, we are making art, and we are, you know, the basis of it is live performance and authenticity. These are real people doing these things. Obviously, we do video editing. We cut the bad stuff, and you know, sometimes sentences get jammed together to make a joke funnier. But you know, that's television, baby.
Yeah.
But you know, but we are expressing improv. We are expressing authentic experiences, and I want to work with real artists providing their contributions in this. I don't want to know what a computer dreams about. I don't want to read a computer screenplay. I don't care about their drawings. You know, there is a novel element of the technical prowess of what's capable of doing, but art is for human connection. Art is for human expression. You know, the computers can go clean the ocean. Like, you know,
Right.
From the content that I make and work on, I don't want AI involved, and I don't want to collaborate with AI. You know, AI has its place, and I think it does some really cool stuff. Blake and I got to go to this recent event. It was Beeple was having an art opening at LACMA. They trained LACMA's data set. LACMA has a public data set that they use to train an AI that in which people can go, and there's a certain parameters that people within one same room are scanning a QR code, and they are you know, doing some parameters, choosing a color and choosing a art style, and then everybody together within a certain time frame is then influencing one piece of art that is being generated. And then it is also a physical art installation that all of this is projected inside of cubes that are moving around. And you know, it is something that is highlighting the human experience of connecting people together in a way.
Yeah.
And that I think is beautiful.
Yeah.
That's a big commercial for. I told him at the event. I was like, I fucking hate AI, but this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there are ways that you can make AI be very experiential. I want it. You know, I like that.
Yeah.
I think that's a really cool thing, and you can't do that unless you're hiring somebody to be doing live art, and that's slow. And you know, there is experiential elements, or you know, something that's motion tracking my body and rigging me and making that as a thing where I can see it. You know, someone had that going on at Camp MoGraph, and I thought that was pretty cool. And you know, there's certain contexts in which it's being utilized in a way that really highlights humanity, and because it's doing something humans can't do, and it's allowing us to connect together. I really like that. And to somebody working in a studio that is, you know, making AI art, and they're doing that,
making AI.
You know, I'm not against that, or I'm not. Yes, I am. I'm sorry. But you know, I just don't care to see it. You know, when I see it, it deters my interest from buying that property, or that, you know, I don't want to, if I see an AI intro, you know, I don't want to watch your Marvel show with I know that's like a dated, you know, take, but like when Marvel made like an AI intro, it was like, I know you work with an agency, but like, if you have all these boards and all of these things that you're influencing the AI, like just have the artist make it. I don't care that it's like a little bit to concept that, like, I don't know, it's like the Skrill or the green people. You know, I guess that it's like invading, but you know, like, you're invading the art space, and you're responsible for all of these visual effects artists. Marvel and Disney are killing the film industry, and you know, shitting all over visual effects artists where they can.
Did you happen to see the new? So Coca-Cola did a new AI commercial this year. You
Oh,
know,
I don't know if I saw this one. I saw the last one where
the last
Coca-Cola
year,
was spelled
yeah,
wrong.
yeah. The last one was terrible, but this year's like, I mean, you can still. I was saying at work today that I think when we think back to like certain art movements and stuff like that, like you've got Bauhaus, or you've got uh what's the one where it's just cement blocks. I
Like
don't
brutalism?
Brutalism, yeah. When you think back to specific time periods and you think back to these specific art styles, I 100% believe that like mushy, high pass, like art is going to be known as what it is right now. That will be seen as like the introduction of AI art and like everything, like this glossed over like faces and stuff like that. 100% like that is what this time period is going to be seen as.
Totally. The slop movement.
The slop movement. Oh, I love that. Yes.
I don't, and again, I speak so candidly, and I'm speaking very frankly. So I take with a big grain of salt of what I'm saying. There's a thousand utilities of AI that are good, but in this Coca-Cola ad or these kinds of things, this glossy face stuff, I know we said, not we, but when painters were mad at photography, or radio's mad at television. Those aren't one-for-one substitutes in the same way that this AI is trying to say it is. I mean, I guess, it's trying to it's like taking the jobs and it's trying to replicate the exact thing we're doing, and it's stealing off of the data. Like,
yeah,
if tech oligarchs didn't run the White House, all of this shit would not happen because intellectual property would be like fucking enforced. Like,
yeah.
Sorry to get political, but it sucks when it's like, the only reason all this AI stuff is so prominent is because there's a select dozens of people who are at stake to make $20 billion trillion.
Yeah. And the interesting thing to me, it's like for people who are going into our industry, nowadays, I worry about the future of them. I worry about a lot of people going to college and stuff and studying certain things where the entry-level jobs are actually being replaced by AI bots and stuff like that. Where are all of our rotoscopers going to be, when we can just have AI do it? Where are the, like, Premiere has gotten so good now where it's like, okay, I can do a multi-camera shot and it's automatically going to cut between the two people. That was something that a junior editor would do for the senior editor beforehand, and it's like, how are some of these more junior people going to get into the industry, or is there going to be so much more work out there? This has absolutely nothing to do with like the whole conversation, but
course.
it's a good, it's a good topic. It's like, I worry about the younger crowd coming fresh out of college, like,
and that's why it's so hard to draw that line anywhere. Because where I work and at home, and when I take freelance work, it's all through Adobe, everything.
Yeah.
There's some pretty amazing tools with like the Roto brush tool in After Effects that is, or like morph cuts in Premiere where you're trying to stitch something together and someone barely moved, but it gets it, if you get it in the right place in the middle of a sentence, it can look right. Or that like AI extension that they're starting to roll out. But I'm weary of those things because I think in their terms of service, you're forfeiting the intellectual property of your media when you're utilizing their AI tools. That I find a lot of this AI promotion from a lot of these companies is really just their way of getting your data and your data set. And that's the new world we live in, where data is more important than anything.
But
I feel
Matt
bad
Siegel
for the
in the
people.
chat says, also, where's the fun in making AI art? Prompting is so boring. Where's the creative choices and the whimsy? It's kind of true. Like, and
I agree. I'll show you some slop. Here's some human-made slop.
slop.
Maybe under the influence of hallucinogenic substances. You know, artists getting together and
Right.
and prompting and generating
love
together
it.
some slop. I mean, come on, look at that beauty.
Look at the buttholes for the eyes.
Yeah, look at all these things right here. I don't know why these are on my desk, but you know, these are things in which this is like 5 different people collaborating to draw some crap.
Nice.
You know, this is prompting with analog style.
Yeah.
You know,
And you know,
it's
each
all-
artist
it's all
is going to
silly,
give you
stupid stuff.
something different every time, you know?
Absolutely, totally. These are the same 4 people drawing here. We have me and I won't name a certain Blake Catherine. You know, this is us collaborating with a post. You know, 2 or 3 other post supervisors that are some of our buddies.
Yeah.
Our whole friend group is we have a lot of post department people.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, I totally
it's okay.
steamrolled the initial comment. You know, these things and these tools, they really help people, and it does eliminate jobs. But you know, it shifts the intent of what these are, and video is ever more prominent. You know, we didn't have a giant infrastructure of rotoscope people in the same capacity that we do now 5-10 years ago. You know, some of these more technical jobs, you know, shift to be different trends where it's cleanup work of cleaning up or tracking or taking a finished product and cleaning it up that way. You know, I don't, that's not like a good answer for young people to hear, but
Yeah.
like, you know, the real intent with being an artist and working in the creative realm is like, what is your secret sauce? What are you bringing to the table? You know, young people, you know, identify what you love to do and show how that is what you are, and for people to want to work with you specifically.
Yeah.
You know, that sucks. You know, people who work in pipeline and are doing other people's scripted stuff, that is really tricky because, you know, that's a whole infrastructure and a machine, and that machine's getting dismantled. You know, I hope that it gets put back together with all the same pieces.
Yeah.
But, you know, I see people online, a lot of like the VFX community, either changing to marketing or changing to something else with, you know, somewhat translatable skills or, you know, I don't mean to keep harping just on VFX.
No, it's okay.
But that's really where I see it though. I mean,
Yeah.
AI is, you know, and I feel in concept art, man, concept art is such a tricky place because that's not customer folk like viewing. So there's no, you know, you can do that in the back room in secret and nobody knows. So it's
yeah. So, okay, going back to Dropout, you know,
yeah. Sorry,
like
yeah,
no. It's like I'm tying all this all together in a nice little bow. You ready for it? All right.
Let's do it,
So
baby.
like, you know, y'all are all about, you know, keeping the burnout out by giving away, you know, the 6 weeks of vacation, which is awesome. Y'all are pretty anti-AI for all your stuff. You do profit sharing. It's like, this is very unconventional for a studio or a production company. And do you think that there could be more success in our industry for other studios to see it this way versus like the way they're doing it now, you know? Like,
yeah, I think so. I mean, well, this is where it's really tricky. You know, if I am an agency and I am being hired by Coca-Cola to do whatever, I'm having to make Coca-Cola's vision and we are answering to them specifically. And it becomes a lot trickier to empower our employees to really, you know, feel empowered and be able to fight that, to have that fulfillment, to fight the burnout. And then also, you know, you can structure to give money away. Absolutely. You know, pay people better. You don't have to give them 6 weeks vacation. Give them a 30% raise.
Yeah.
You know, if you're making a certain amount, you know, you need to have a 5%, you need a 5% raise every year to thank you for the work you did and account for inflation. More than that, ideally. But, you know, treat your people well and they'll treat you well and want to work for you. You know, I'm on here singing I love Dropout. I've worked with them forever. They've caused me all of the work stress in the past 10 years of all of my work. They're my main client, you know.
Yeah.
Sure, we've had times where I've been really fucking pissed, but, you know, at the end of the day, they treat me right and they listen to me. And, I've been consulting before I was on this meeting about how we're shooting something tomorrow. So when I go on set, it's a nice, smooth experience because what we're doing is really ambitious and, we need to all be friendly and nice to each other.
Yeah.
I've never been yelled at, we have stern conversations together sometimes, but no one is mean to each other. We're all in it together. But a lot of that comes from most other companies. CEOs aren't labor secretaries.
Yeah.
So Sam Reich's father is Robert Reich.
Yeah.
So, empower the working man. That's the mentality of what we're doing here. So a lot of it comes from the top down.
I love
that. If Sam wasn't so busy, I would see us hanging out outside of work at some point.
Yeah. Do you ever worry that, I like to use Whataburger here in Texas as an example, or I guess you could say Red Lobster because it's more of like a, national brand. Well,
I'll take them both.
It got bought out by private equity, and then private equity basically like, the quality starts to go down, or anytime a company goes, public, you can see a dip in quality because it's all about, making more money for the shareholders and stuff like that. Do you worry that Dropout is going to get so big that, it's probably more to ask from a VFX motion graphics guy, than, but
I've been around since before it existed, and I'm here while it's at the biggest it's been. We weren't believed in by our previous tech owner, and now, they didn't think we would be profitable after the runway that we were at. We were showing growth and that we would be profitable at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're having enough money that we're giving it away. I do see that we are growing. I do see our shows are changing a bit. We're trying to get back and doing some scripted stuff. Our voice is changing. What we're doing is different, and we are growing. It is very hard for us to maintain that laser focus of what we were doing.
Yeah.
But when we started, we were in scripted. Then we really found our footing in non-scripted. Like any other TV studio, it's cheaper. There's a reason all daytime TV is game shows.
Yeah.
A lot of Dropout is improv disguised as game shows because that's how you can responsibly film this type of content.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to get back into scripted, and we're getting into some animated stuff. I see us growing, and we're going to be different. I feel confident with the leadership that we have internally and, our focus and what we're doing. Our goal is to continue doing comedy. Our goal is to introduce animation. We have stuff planned for next year. We have stuff planned for 2027. Fingers crossed all of our growth stays in the way that we expect, and we can afford to do full animated television and all sorts of shit. There's plans for all sorts of type of content, and I do see us growing. We're a company with a bunch of people. I'm speaking here very utopic in my ideals. I'm doing the motion graphics. I don't make these hard decisions, so it's easy for me to jump on the mountaintop and say treat everyone right, pay everyone more money, raise all the budgets, makes the shows better. At a point we're finding that place where we don't need 30-second animated 3D intros for a stand-up comedy show. So, we have that as a different medium where we're doing stuff with photography and keeping things more appropriate for what their brands are, but also trying to see where keeping it responsible. And, Game Changer's grown. You can see it from how it's grown in just the past 3 seasons. It's, 5 times bigger than it ever was.
Yeah.
It is our biggest show and the one that brings in the most people, but, we're finding where we need to stop. Growing too fast was our biggest fear. And that's something that we talk about a lot, is not growing too fast while still maintaining. I think our company's mission statement is to create an environment where art can thrive. It's all about the authenticity of people. And, we have HR, and we have, yearly company retreats where we all realign and make sure we're all trying to steer the company the same way so that we don't become these evil tech overlords. But if Dropout ends up with 50 million subscribers, just no AI, and it's only a couple of us doing this, of course, we can't maintain that. Yeah. So we are the rock and roll little comedy streamer, but I want to, we are growing and we are changing, and we're trying to maintain a moral company and treat our people right. And, and our content's really friendly. It's kind of hard not to smile and feel like you're part of the family when you're watching.
Yeah. TJ, thank you so much for being on the show. I really do appreciate it. And thanks for, talking. I knew it was going to be a good conversation. I knew. We're at an hour and 20 minutes already.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is so fun.
Yeah, man.
Brought to you by Celsius. We're both juiced, baby.
Yeah, right. That's funny because last week's episode was also brought to you by Celsius.
Hold on. This episode's brought to you by Bug Assault. You've got bugs, kill them with salt.
All right. Well, thanks to everyone for joining. Make sure to follow us on all the socials, especially YouTube and Twitch. We've been doing our weekly MoGraph Hangouts. Last week, we made some spooky ghosts using Houdini Vellum. I'm doing my full, I've got exactly 1 month left on my C40 license, and I don't plan on renewing it. On my Maxon 1 license, I don't plan on renewing it. I am going full on Houdini. I bought a 2-year license for a fraction of the cost of C40. So I'm doing that. So if you want to come check it out, hang out with us. Those are Thursday nights at around 7:30. I've been kind of getting on early, with both the podcast and the streaming, because so around 7:30, it's gonna be good. We got a bunch of great guests coming up. Who they are, I have no idea, because I haven't booked anyone yet. But Mel MoGraph's gonna come on at some point.
Hell yeah.
Once he signs up. And also, if you haven't done it already, make sure to sign up for your very own MoGraph.com account. It's a one-stop shop for everything a motion designer needs. Showcase your demo reel, projects you've worked on, post jobs, apply for jobs, sell your digital goods, find meetup groups, or start one of your own. All for free, algorithm free, and AI free. So we currently have over 850 members, and we're still growing. We're an artist-first site where your work will always be yours and never fed to the AI machine. So stop posting on Instagram. Start posting on MoGraph.com. Come hang out. It's a lot of fun. And follow me on there. You'll see all my posts as well. TJ, where can people find you if they're looking for you online?
I am clinically offline. Catch me on Instagram under the name Gonzalez. But more realistically, you'll find me in the pictures sometimes on Blake's Instagram stories.
That's funny.
But you can check out Dropout.tv. We do like a week free trial, a lot of promotions for month free trials.
Yeah.
Check out Dropout's content. That's really where my work lies.
It's really cheap. It's super cheap.
Yeah.
The monthly, membership or whatever is super cheap. And what I loved, like, it was like last year or something like that. Dropout raised the price like $1 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And all the comments on the TikTok was like, you need to charge more. I will pay you more. Which
some of our fans are outrageous and how much they want to support us. I'm so grateful for them.
Yeah.
We actually just released something called Tier 2. It's not that we are releasing exclusive content or anything, but for those wacky fans who just can't get enough of us, you can pay us more if you want. We have a bunch of videos coming out in promotion for it. It comes from Sam's mouth himself. Pay us more or don't. The tier is just for some exclusive merch and stuff. So a lot of it,
cool.
Dropout's like $6 or $7 a month. You get a new episode of something every day. Everything's like 30, 40 minutes long. We're putting out so much content these days.
That's awesome.
It's also awesome. Friendly.
All right. TJ, thank you so much. Thanks to everyone for joining us. And I guess we'll see everyone next time. I'm Matt. You're TJ. Later, yo. Let's see. Where's my ending? There it is.
It's pretty good, I guess.